listening to Wake Up Hollywood with Nikhil Korula and Eddie Pence, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Wake Up Hollywood, this is your host of the most, Nikhil Korula. We're going to jump right into this episode. We have a writer, director, filmmaking duo in Mr. William Cook and Robert Lee Brown. How are you guys?
Doing good, Nikki. How you doing?
Good. You know, it's cool because we're rolling out episode 6, and Will, you shot episode 6, and Robert, you worked on episode 6, assisting Will. So we're like having a reunion at the perfect time, which is really great.
That's right. Guy has another thing coming up too, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're going to do an episode 8. We're trying to finalize details. I went over to Bruce Whitkin's studio, who you guys both love. And I love too. It was like so crazy to have a reunion after so many years. It's probably been 10 plus years since I saw Bruce. So it's so rad.
Oh, wow.
We just caught up for, and what's funny? He was like, how did you meet Will? And I was like, I got to ask Will. And I was driving home and I was like, Kevin Jarvis. He was the one that referred me to you. So I was like, I forgot for a second. I was like, wait a minute. How do I know Will? This is crazy. It's just so like random and awesome how the universe works. Robert, how did you met Bruce because of V, right? His daughter?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so it's so crazy because here's the long story. I think Bruce's wife is the cousin of my old lead guitarist. So we did our first record at Bruce Whitkin's studio in 2003. So when you guys were working with Bruce, I was like, it's so crazy that we're working together and you guys are working with Bruce. Just a small world. It's just this industry is so much smaller than you think.
It really is. Yeah. Everyone seems to know everybody in it. It's awesome though. It seems like a family.
That's what makes it cool. You guys are both from Florida, but you didn't meet in Florida, correct?
We met in Utah.
We met in Utah, yeah.
Where did you meet at Sundance?
We met ironically, it was for a music video shoot. I knew this artist named Kyle Paetti, really talented guy from Florida. And he and I talked about doing this music video together. And Kyle knows Robert. And
DJ.
That's so
by DJ. Yeah. And it was kind of fun because I feel like when I was starting to get involved in film in Florida, that's when you kind of left, right, Robert?
Yeah, that's when I left Florida and went to LA. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Robert, you left for music, correct?
Well, the combination of music and film. I wanted to be out here in LA and transition into film. And so that's one of the main reasons I left.
Amazing. Will, I didn't mean to cut you off. So you were saying you met in Utah. You were on this video shoot.
Yeah, it was just a group of guys that, it was a passion project music video because it's like a 7-minute track. It was just a musical track. And me and Kyle had come up with this crazy idea to just go around the desert. And it was more of just a fun trip for all of us to like go sightseeing out in the wilderness along these Native American trails, that nobody's been around in years. And do you know where you were? Where were you in Utah? Well, we started at a place called like Horseshoe Bend.
I know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but then we made our way out of Utah. We went to Arizona.
We started in Arizona and then went to Utah.
That's right. Sorry, yeah, we started in Flagstaff, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then just started making our way all over the place, shooting this huge music video. That actually we just released like a couple weeks ago. But yeah, just some gorgeous desert scenery with like an abstract storyline behind it. And it's a great track. Kyle's such a talented artist. It's fun getting to work with him.
Did you guys hit it off that you were both from Florida? You're like, wait a minute, I'm from Florida. You're from Florida. Was that part of it? It was just, and then did you talk about movies on the shoot? Were you like, man, I love movies. These are the movies I love. This is why.
There was a lot of that. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't remember a whole lot about what we talked about, Robert. What did we talk about on this?
I know that I went down the rabbit hole of like random ideas that I had for stories that I wanted to do at some point in the future. And we just kind of started talking about like everything between story ideas to film equipment. And I was learning a lot from Will because I knew very little about cameras. So,
Right.
My knowledge on cameras was the Panasonic DVX 100A or the Canon XL1, which was like way back in the day. And, Will's knowledge on cameras were more, relevant to digital cameras. And so he had a lot more knowledge on that area than I did.
Well, and you kept telling me there's this artist you got to introduce you to. I'm like,
oh yeah.
It was Eugene Rice of American Mile, who that's how I ended up, meeting Bruce. Because through Eugene and everything.
And Eugene is married to Bruce's daughter, correct? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy. I mean, how did you initially get connected to V and Eugene, Robert?
So I used to DJ at a club in Hollywood called Bordner's. So I was DJing there Wednesday nights doing Club Moscow. And I think it was like a month after I moved here, I met up with, I met Eugene and V like one random night that they were performing on stage, and we just kind of talked and hit it off. And like, that same night, Eugene invited me over for what was it? A house party for St. Patty's Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now you live with them. So
yeah.
It's like, what a great connection. You know what? I love stories like that because it's like you don't really know what's going to happen when you're meeting these people. Like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going back to this party. Cool. And then it's like, now this is like a big part of your crew. Will, you shot a bunch of music videos for them, which we've had you on the show before which are great. And the bands are awesome. Bruce played me some of V's stuff. And I was like, man, she's just awesome. So it's just like, it seems like you have a very good artistic crew. Now you come up with these ideas to make short films. Whose idea was it to kind of initially get the first short kind of moving between the two of you?
I think it's Robert's, probably.
Yeah. I talked to Will Zed about it. I talked to him a lot about it and kept talking until eventually he cracked and said, all right, we're going to do it.
How long did it take for you to shoot? I think the first one was Tragedy of Abe Froman, correct?
Yeah.
Is that
the first one?
I think I asked you this, Will. There's no Ferris Bueller's Day Off connection to the name Abe Froman, correct?
No. I mean, no, not really. That was just kind of a joke, an inside joke about it, and it was fun when the project name got released and so many people were like, the Sausage King of Chicago, and we're like, it was just fun. It was like, let's see who catches it. Like, do you get it? Because not everyone did. And it was just like a little insider joke because the character, the Senator Abe Froman, he's never seen within the film.
Right.
And ultimately, if you watch it, you'll understand why. That's kind of the point. So we're like, the name could literally be anything. And the Abe Froman from Sausage King of Chicago is like, so why not just make it an actual funny thing that, could be like somewhat relatable.
Well, I love the Ferris Bueller reference, whether it's relevant or not, but it is to me because I'm like, that is like a perfect generational thing for our generation. Because like that movie shaped like my life's philosophy in so many ways. So I want to play a couple reels real quick of the Tragedy of Abe Froman. We'll talk a little bit about this, and then we'll talk about the new short you guys are working on. So let's just play the first reel that we got for the Tragedy of Abe Froman, and we'll talk about it right now.
Let's do it.
We have confirmation now. Senator Abe Froman has suffered a gunshot wound from an unknown shooter
We have some breaking developments on the shooting at Jefferson Heights
while
Elementary
attending
School.
an event at Jefferson Heights
Senator Abe
Elementary School.
Froman was shot.
Here's
by
some
a
crazy
gunshot
news about the
wound
Senator Froman shooting.
We don't have any word on any other injuries, and we'll keep you updated as we get more information.
awesome. So super high energy. I watched it today. It's very good. It's on YouTube. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So tell me what went into this. Well, how many days did you shoot? How many locations did you shoot? What was the number of the people in the cast? Tell me how it all went down.
I mean, it was just a group of us. I mean, ultimately, I think in total about 11 people worked on this film.
Okay.
All in all, when it was said and done, you know, we were, I think, very strategic within the writing process as far as writing around what locations that we had. So it's kind of like, okay, so we have access to this coffee shop, this desert location, these 2 apartments. How can we kind of like connect all these dots? And it's like, so, you know, like the Hitman's location, it's my apartment, you know. Awesome. Tony's house is, you know, actually where he actually lives. He's sitting right in it. We shot a scene on that couch. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, this very spot.
That very spot, you know, you'll see this shot in the film, actually.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Robert, when you were writing it, like, what was the inspiration behind kind of like putting this in motion and writing the story?
So the inspiration was, there was a lot of different inspirations. You know, one of my favorite films is Falling Down with Michael Douglas. One of my favorite films. And so I kind of wanted to do something as an homage to that. And also, you know, I wanted to do a story about a character who is just going through loss and trying to find his way and having to go back and clean up his own mess.
Well, it's awesome because it's like you see your character is dealing with some stuff and quietly dealing with it, and it just turns into like quiet frustration turn into rage. Like it is like this really stoic part of your character where you see the evolution of like, okay, I'm not happy to, okay, I'm about to go off, and then you do go off. That's like the evolution, the arc of the character, which is pretty cool. So like now I know Falling Down was a great way to kind of use that as your muse. Will, you were saying something about the shoot or the cast just a second ago before I cut you off.
Oh, just that I total production days, I think we had like 6 total. Took us about a month, I think, to get everything shot. Post took a little bit longer, but not too long. I mean, it's about 17-minute short film, so you know, we were able to breeze through it. Ironically, the composer that did all the music for us, and it was Kyle Payetti, the guy that we met on.
Wow.
He made that track that you just heard within the trailer. That's some of his music. So we were able to rope him into this, and you know, he did such a fantastic job on the score. And he had already had that track, and I asked him, I'd heard it before, and I said, dude, I want to use this as like in our film. And he was so kind. He actually like, you know, did a couple other changes. He's like, that's a couple years old. He's like, I got some new ideas I want to, you know, explore with it. And so he re-updated it, let us use it as a title track. You know, such a talented guy. You know, love getting to work with him anytime we can. So, but yeah, very small crew. As far as camera crew it goes, it was me, and it was me, and then running sound was my buddy Jasper Henry, another musician, sound guy, boom op. You know, it was just the 2 of us. You'll actually see him in the film. I do have to say this: there's a coffee shop scene where you're going to see this long-haired guy sitting here with sunglasses and headphones, and he's just looking down like this at the coffee table. That's actually our sound guy, and he's looking at the mixer like this, mixing audio. But he has it under the table, and we just used him as an extra. We're like, we need someone to sit at that table. Just go sit there and pretend like you're a college student, you know, or whatever. That's
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're like, he's like, I'm doing double duty. I can do it.
That's right. He was like, where's my residuals? And I was like, shut up. I was like, you're getting fed. You're getting fed.
Let's play a couple reels, and then we'll talk about some of the scenes. Let's play one of the first reels from Tragedy of Abe Froman.
Tomorrow, 12 noon, Senator A. Froman. Done.
I gotta say, when you were cutting that sound, I was like, man, I hope he doesn't cut his finger. I hope he doesn't cut his finger.
I think we
like,
joked
it doesn't
about
look
that.
like he's making that many salads. It could be dicey. No, you know what? It was, and I was also like thinking like it was so funny when I was watching. I was like, what kind of salad is he making? Like, is it a kale salad? Is it, you know? So let's talk a little bit about like there's one scene where you guys are shooting on, I think it's on Hollywood Boulevard, right? Right at LA, I mean Hollywood and Highlands.
We definitely had permits. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
We had permits. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, with all the crowds around you, how many shots did it take you to get that scene? Because that was the first thought I had. I was like, that must have been annoying to have to shoot.
Do you want me to include the shots with Spider-Man and Mickey Mouse running around in the background?
Please.
Those two? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. There was 5 Batman shots, at least 6 Spider-Man shots. There was so many. It was actually very difficult because I wanted to shoot at a really long focal length too, because to really showcase a crowd, you know, there. And it was quite difficult, but I think like we got, you know, we were smart with it as far as like cutting in between that shot and then getting close for some of these wider shots and like using upward angles to intercut them. It was very tricky though. And it's kind of funny though, you know, it's LA, like nobody cares. So like you're just doing all this and nobody's looking at you. Like nobody cares. They're avoiding the camera. They're just walking down the street. Like it's LA, you know? So they're just kind of like, it's probably something from Fallon across the street, you know, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I was surprised there was not a lot of eye contact from the crowd, like in the camera. That's what I was like, how did that happen? Because usually even a tourist would be like, oh, there's a camera. Like it would look right, you know, they would look right at the camera at some point. But
well, that's why I used a really long focal length too, was because I was like, I was going to be so far away. People over in that area weren't going to see the camera that far. So they're not going to be making eye contact because I'm like, you know, about 100 feet away.
Okay. Let's play a couple more reels. Let's play whatever reel we got left. That was crazy. That was vicious, bro.
Yeah. Robert, you have to tell him the story about that hit.
Okay. About the guys that jumped out from the hotel behind us.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, some guys were at the hotel right behind where we shot that scene, and they thought I really hit them. So they come running out.
Wow. Really?
They were like, what's going on? What's going on? And then I like just hold up the camera and they're like, well,
it looked real. It looked real. I mean, it did. And man, I got to tell you that look that Robert you had in the car right before, dude, that was you tapped into something crazy there because you looked like you were ready to kick some ass, whoop some ass. So
what's funny is that was the very first scene that popped in my head when I came up with the story. When I like talked to Will and said, "Hey, let's do the story about this assassin." That was literally the first scene that was like, let's see where this can go.
Wow.
And then everything else kind of went around it because I was like, I really want to do something
with that scene first.
That was the scene that kind of like expanded the whole idea from there. Because I was talking to Will and I said, hey, I got the scene in my head about this guy sitting in a car and then putting someone in a trunk. And we talked about that like back and forth for a few minutes before we started writing everything.
How did you get the shot in the trunk, Will?
So we actually stuffed my buddy Antonio in the trunk. And then that was in Robert's Civic. And then we just brought the seats down, the back seats down, because it opens straight up to the trunk. So we actually closed it so it was fully open, but then I took like a Dubatine, hung it over the back to really kind of black it out, and then we just cracked in a little bit of light, like just enough for the camera to be able to see Antonio's face and kind of the movement of him shuffling around the car. We did it in the desert, and it was super hot that day. I think it was like in the high 80s, But by the time we pulled Antonio out, he's like dripping in sweat. You know, he's just like, and he was like claustrophobic. He was like, I got to get out of here. I was like, this is crazy. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It adds to the character for sure. And
It did.
you could tell like that scene. I mean, it had that look. I mean, as the viewer, it's like you feel that kind of like suffocating vibe. I want to make sure we play all the reels. Let's play any more reels that we got left, Sam.
New developments coming in from the Orange County Police Department are implying an additional death at today's earlier shooting.
Nice. So spooky. So crazy. So what the cool thing about it is you kind of leave it open-ended towards the end. Is there a second part of this story? Is that leading to what could be a feature? What was the reason behind that?
There can be. Yeah, we don't really have anything in development right now, but Robert and I mean, we've definitely talked about multiple different ideas. We even talked about a bit of a prequel beforehand.
That'd be cool.
You know, to kind of like showcase something that could happen with the build up to all this, like about Tony's past and, you know, how he ended up deciding to go down for life in suburbia. Yeah. Robert's come up with a lot of ideas.
So what was your intention with leaving it kind of open-ended at the end?
So in the beginning, we discussed doing like a web series with it. We also discussed an idea of like a feature. We definitely talked about like a prequel. So we had a few different ideas. But I felt like leaving it open-ended gives us an opportunity to create something in the future if we decide to do so. And at any point, because of it being left open-ended the way it is, we could take up from anywhere at any point and go anywhere with it.
I like that. That's one of the things I did like. It was like, okay, this could go in so many different directions and kind of, you know, like it leaves it open to interpretation as to what happens next, which is cool. So, Sam, let me know, do we have any more reels? How many reels did you send me?
When you kill two birds with one stone, how many are left? 0. I know you're coming for me. Now you're back in the game.
I love it. I love it. Short and sweet. Do you find it, I have to ask both of you, when it comes to reels and it comes to people's attention spans, you have to make them, you know, super short. Is that like a little bit frustrating to have to tell a story or tease a short film in a matter of seconds for either of you?
Yes and no. I mean, it's fun in that it is a challenge of, you know, how interesting can I make this first 3 seconds? That's a challenge in of itself. Because I think that's like what the statistics are showing these days. I think it's even less. I think it's like you have like 1.7 seconds to get somebody's attention now.
God, are you serious?
It's that bad. That's how terrible we are as humans now with attention spans. I dislike it just for the simple fact of it's like I wish we had the capability of being able to actually commit more to something, you know, and, you know, invest our time and energy into an actual thing. But it makes sense because we're so oversaturated with content. You know, we have so much stuff just coming at you every single day. I mean, everything is a screen. Every single thing is a screen now. So it's just logical that that's where you have to land with being quick, short, to the point. You know, is that opening shot interesting enough to grab that person's attention? The soundscape's huge. You know, that's absolutely everything. A lot of times we're wearing earbuds. You know, so.
Robert, what did you think when it was time to kind of release the reels? Did you think it was enough to kind of hint at the story, or did you feel like it was too short on the short form?
No, honestly, I think shorter is better. It is a challenge, but shorter, you know, is better because it is, you know, people's attention span is gotten shorter. And like you said, Will said earlier, 1.5 1.5 seconds, 1.7 seconds.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's something crazy like that. It's very short.
Which is
Makes
unfortunate.
sense. You've got people that are scrolling. Sorry about that. But
No, it's
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the TikTok generation more than anything, because it's like it's just giving you unlimited amount of content whenever you want,
Yeah.
and it's usually short, like anything that's like 10 minutes long. Even if I see a video that's like 30 minutes long, for example, if it's a YouTube video, I'm like, it really has to pull me in, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if I'm sitting through this whole thing, you better get me to a place where I'm like, wow, that was totally worth it. But I don't mind a minute reels. I don't mind, but maybe it's because I come from a different generation. So do you find that it's like easier to get the younger generation with those shorter reels, or do you also find that it's harder because you're competing with so many short reels too? You know, it's like, is it enough?
I think it comes down to the content that you're making. I think we were pretty diverse with our marketing rollout as far as, we have the landscape, a little bit longer trailer that hits around the 30-second mark. For a short film, that's long enough. You don't need a 3-minute trailer for a 17-minute short film. So that's like our long form version. That's something that goes, out professionally. It's also something great to like really show potential backers, producers, clients that might want to be more interested and know more about the story. But like when you're just approaching that person that's just doom scrolling on their couch in their living room, it's like, what's the quickest thing I can think of from the film that will draw them in enough to like, and then also end with a question to where now they're invested and they want to know more and they want to click through maybe 3 different buttons to get to YouTube and do all that work now.
Yeah, I mean, I find it a little bit frustrating because it's like, even a full song, as you know, Will, we're doing lots of songs.
Yeah.
It's like we're testing people's attention span just with how involved can you stay around. And part of it is like, listen, I don't care if you're not going to stay around. And part of me is like, I hope you stay around. So it's like this fine balance on the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this Tragedy of Abe Froman's on YouTube. People can check it out now. Now let's like pivot to the next project. We have Blood Money, right? That's the new short. Tell me what the inspiration behind this was.
I wrote Blood Money back in college, actually. And as I told you before, I grew up in Florida. So I wrote a script about 2 cowboys dying of dehydration in the desert, and I lived in Florida. So that was never going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
And, finally eventually moved out to California and everything. And, I've always been enamored with the desert because I've never been around it. And I just really wanted to get this project done this year, but I always wanted to do it right. And I knew it was ambitious, like 2 hours out of LA, wanted a good cast, wanted a great crew, wanted it to be filmed right. Wanted it shot on a certain type of lens. There was a lot of boxes that I had to check for me. And, I was able to secure all the funding and self-funded it. And it was a beast of a project, but man, I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I was so blessed with just an absolute amazing crew. It had a cracking.
How many days did you shoot the whole thing?
It was supposed to be 3. We ended up going 4 for a pickup day, which is like a little half day. There was some shots on day 1 that we weren't able to bank. But we did a micro crew on day 4, popped back out to the desert, knocked them out real fast. And, just chasing light in the desert when you're kind of like, we're in a dry lake bed. So, it's kind of like a bowl and we're surrounded by mountains. So there's about 2 hours of sunlight that you're not going to get because it's going to go behind that mountain really quick. So days were extra short for us, travel time to get out there. There was a lot, caravanning a lot of people out there too. Food, closest restaurant 45 minutes away, PAs to go get lunch, Day 1 that we were there, there was basically a sandstorm. There was just a flat out sandstorm happening. And I could tell almost everybody was kind of like, are we canning the day? And I was like,
you're like, we can't afford it.
I've put so much money into this. I was like, we're going to do it. I was like, get us some masks, scarves, and whatever. We're going to make it happen. But that ended up even being better because the shots just looked absolutely insane with all these. We had some tumbleweeds going through the frame. Dust is just flying around. the actors' clothing got completely covered in dust. It looked so authentic, and it ended up turning out beautifully. My DP Nate Husseini just did an absolutely amazing job shooting it.
So how did that work for you, Will? Because you were in it. So did you kind of like instruct, the cinematographer, like, hey, I wanted to do this, do a sweeping shot like this, keep it like, how did you kind of advise the cinematographer do what he needed to do?
Well, I had Antonio, the guy who plays the bad guy in Abe Froman. He was my AD, assistant director, and one of my producers. And of course, Robert is one of my producers as well. So, like when I had to kind of step into some of these scenes, they were able to kind of like step in and fill some of those, things for me. I'd created shot lists for each day. I got into film as an editor, so I knew and I wrote this film so long ago, I knew exactly every shot I wanted. So I always shoot for an edit, and basically I was like, if we just get these shots, I'm good. So right. My DP and Antonio and Robert all had shot lists, so they were all on the same page as me. I always feel like that's very important for creative projects is you can't be a lone wolf in any of this. You really can't. You've got to have a crew that is all on the same vision, right, and all on the same team. That's the hard part. Yeah. But it's important if you're fronting it and you're leading, it's important that you communicate that vision and how effectively you can do that. And I've just worked with all these guys for so long, we all speak the same language creatively, and stylistically too. We love a lot of the same stuff. So, there's definitely a shorthand of communication that we pass around on set.
That's awesome. And Robert, what drew you to it? Were you like, man, let's do a Western in the desert, I'm ready for the heat?
This was actually a project for Will. Will's been wanting to do this for a while. And, anytime he has an idea or project, I'm always there to support him in any way that I can. And I'm always like, hey, man, whatever you need, just let me know. I'm always here. Anything, doesn't matter. So,
and I should note too, so Robert, as one of our producers, I really wanted a lot of behind the scenes of the process of this. I was like, this is a story in of itself, in that like we're filming this out in the desert and it's very ambitious. So he was very much in charge of producing our behind the scenes, basically mini doc that we had filmed. I had a separate camera operator just filming everything that was going on, and he helped host that and capture a lot of the footage of how we went through this entire process.
That's
that's invaluable.
I did that on my music video, and you don't realize how valuable that footage is. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the things you're like, man, to document any kind of like B-roll that ends up becoming documentary style stuff, it just adds to the story and to the allure of the project. Will, I wanted to ask you, if you wrote this a long time ago, when you revisited it, did you make any changes, or were you like, no, it still plays, it still works the way I want to, I wouldn't change anything with the vision? Or the things that you changed, and what things did you change if you did?
The only main change I had added was actually my character. Originally the script was a little bit shorter, and it was solid. That whole beginning part of my character coming in, and I don't want to give too much away about it, but I die, within it.
Spoiler alert.
It's a very poetic moment,
right.
in my life. But no, I wanted to just add at least like another page or two to kind of give some exposition to a couple of the story points about where this money comes from, how one of our leads acquired it. And I was like, I'll just make myself the bad guy and off myself. That'd be great. And then he carries my head around in a sack the rest of the film. It'll be funny. So that was like the only addition that I really added into it. And I think it was nice because it kind of helped expand the film a little bit more. And I was like, if we're going to be doing all this work, I was like, let's at least try to shoot for a full 15 minutes. Because as where it's sat, it was probably around like 10 to 12.
Wow. That's cool. They always say like art isn't finished, it's abandoned. So it's like,
so true.
When you hold on to a project, especially a passion project, for so long, and both of you have done this with Tragedy of Abe Froman and with Blood Money, when did you kind of feel like the moment where it was, okay, it's finished, it's done? we don't need to touch it anymore? What was that moment? Let's start with you, Robert. What was that moment for you with Tragedy of Abe Froman? And Will, what was that for you for Blood Money?
So the moment with Tragedy was really when I talked to Will. He read over the script and he was like, I think we're good. I think this is it. I think we got it. And he set up the shoot date and we went from there.
And then in the editing process, did it come to life in the same way that you wanted, or did you kind of see, wait, this works, let's cut this scene out? Like, what were the parts like that you kind of left off that, or did you kind of film everything that you wrote?
Well, everything that I wrote in there and that we worked on together, Will was the one who saw the vision after we put it together, because I was only able to put what I had in my head on paper. And of course, Will encouraged me to do so because I was like, this is the idea. But once we got it on paper, Will was able to see the vision and he knew exactly what we were shooting for from there.
And Will, you said you shoot for the editing process. So when you were editing Tragedy of Abe Froman, what was the moment where you're like, I don't need to do any more edits. This is good, right where it is.
A lot of times when I work on short films, I can get a first cut done pretty quick, and then I'll mull over it in my head for about a week. I mean, I don't want to give it too long, but you do need to give it some time. I mean, as with anything, I mean, you're in music, Nikki. I'm sure like you finish a song and then you like come back to it a week later and then you go like, what was I thinking? Like, I need to change this. I need to change that. So I try to give myself kind of like 3 rounds on that as much as I can. There's sometimes where I just like get to the second one. I'm like, no, I'm good. I feel solid on this.
Yeah.
But that's rare and that doesn't happen all the time. But I think giving yourself a beat, but have a time limit, because like I have seen it so many times, people just, they finish and they sit on it for like way too long. I did sit on this particular edit for a hot minute. I'm not going to lie. And that was only mainly because I was I was working a lot of other jobs at the time as well. That's part of the life of, this is a passion project, everybody's volunteering their time. And, it's just me in post, all by myself. I'm editing it, I'm cutting it, I'm color grading it. And, eventually once we have that, then I can get it off to somebody to do sound. But I even had to do a lot of the sound stuff. I did all the Foley work for it as well. Wow. So, it's a long process, to like get home from set after 12 hours and then have to go through a lot of that stuff as well. So that one took a little bit longer for me. But as far as being happy with the cut, I always knew where I was heading with it. I knew the editing style that I wanted out of it. And I'm pretty happy with how it's cut, actually. That's one of the things I'm still very proud about that project with.
And with Blood Money, was it any different because you were probably even more attached to it because it was an old story that you wanted to, come to life for so long? So when was that moment for you where you're like, okay, I think it's good, it's done?
Blood Money was very quick, actually, because again, I think I wrote this back in 2018 and, I've had this vision in my head for forever. So I knew exactly what I wanted out of that. And I cut that together so quick as far as the cut. The actual then other bit of post, the color grading, I spent a lot more time on. We ended up getting a 5-1 mix. Ironically, Paul Barker of Ministry, cool. The band, did our 5-1 mix for us. Jasper Henry ended up doing our Foley work and a lot of our mixing. He did a fantastic job on that. So, and our score is fantastic too. Filip Oletka, he's actually in Slovakia, music composer. He's worked with Hans Zimmer and Lauren Belf. He did an absolutely amazing job scoring this project. I told him, I was like, I want Ennio Morricone, and he really got in the vein of that. He really did.
Well, let's watch the trailer of Blood Money. Here's the trailer of Blood Money.
The desert is a deadly place. Anything out there is gonna be damn sure trying to kill you. And if you somehow survive the dehydration, scorpions, and arrows, you best believe an ounce of lead is coming for you next. Especially when you, my friend, have a whole lot of money.
That's awesome. And I got to tell you, when I saw the trailer, I was like, man, I better have a bottle of water next to me for this movie.
I'll tell you, that film will make you thirsty.
I'm telling you, it made me thirsty just from the trailer. I was like, somebody get me some water fast because I'm thirsty watching this, because I just feel for the characters, because you feel that desert heat. You see it on their faces. You see the dust. You see the chapped lips. You see all of it. Tell me, what was one of the details that you were like, this has to be a part of this to get that across? What was that detail for you?
Well, I can tell you one thing. The best way to get a good performance like this out of your actors is just don't give them any water for 3 days. It's great. It's easy. It's perfect. Like by day 3, they're like feeling it, you know? No, I mean, there were so many challenges with it. I mean, you know, digging up the costumes, scouring eBay for authentic saddlebags that had a patina finish to them, because I didn't want new stuff. You know, I wanted stuff that looked worn, used, old. You know, buying multiple different hats for the Jake Harrington character. You know, and then once we got costumes, sometimes I did have to buy some new stuff, and it was like brand new item. Just chuck it down in the dirt and start roughing it up, you know, and make it all dirty and everything. So, yeah, there was a lot.
What's so cool is you take an element that's like so primal, like dehydration, like something that is, you know, will you kill for something like that? And you probably will when you're in a place like that under those circumstances. Robert, when you were a part of this project, did you have a bottle of water right next to you because you had to?
Oh God,
thirsty at some point.
Yeah, we all had water, but you know, unfortunately, it would go missing.
Right, you're like, somebody stole my water.
Yeah,
it went quick.
That's
went
awesome.
Very quick.
What was the biggest challenge for both of you filming this, just to get the story done, or just under the circumstances? Because that's not easy, being out in the desert shooting like that. Tell me, what was the biggest obstacle for you guys?
For me, it's the elements. I mean, working in the desert is absolutely brutal. But it's so worth it. You know, it reads, it translates. Like in that final wide shot, that's a $1 million shot that my DP got. I mean, it just is. You know, you can't cheat that in a studio in Burbank. You just can't. You know, it just, you know, it has that one of my favorite films is Lawrence of Arabia. And some of those desert landscape shots is definitely what I, you know, discussed with my DP that I really wanted to get. But, you know, like when you get out there and there's like 50-mile-an-hour winds of just dust, and it's like everyone has to wear sunglasses, and you're just getting, you know, dust balls up your nose in every crevice of you.
Right.
And that just goes on for all day.
Mhm.
It gets brutal. You get windburned, you get sunburned, you know, you get dehydrated because it's the desert and it's super dry. Luckily, it wasn't that hot. We lucked out with that. It hung around like the high 70s most of the day. So, I mean, it was, you know, the sun's beating down,
just
but
rained.
it just rained.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
You was very lucky then.
Yeah, we lucked out with a lot of that. We were afraid, since it was a lake bed, there was going to be puddles there, but luckily there was not. So
there were a few.
I don't know if we talked about
small
this,
ones,
Will,
yeah.
but Spielberg says Lawrence of Arabia is his favorite movie. He watches it every week, and I haven't seen this movie yet, and it's crazy.
Really?
And the reason is I don't want to rent it. After what he said about the movie, I want to see it in the theater. So there are like theatrical releases of it. So I've been looking almost every month. So if you see a theatrical release of Lawrence of Arabia, you let me know, because I want to see that. Because it's funny that you said that that's one of the movies that you think is one of the best movies ever made. He watches it every week just to remind him as to why he makes movies. So I'm like, I've got to see it in the theater.
Yeah, if I ever find it, I'll let you know, because honestly, I haven't seen it in theaters either. And I would love to see that on the big screen. But it is that, you know, just desert epic Ben-Hur-esque movie that you do want to see on a big screen. It's just,
and the desert becomes a character. You know what I mean?
Does.
So,
it really does.
I love that
Well,
you made that
and-
translation in yours too.
Well, that happened through the soundscape. You know, when the wind started happening, I was like, how are we going to get audio? I was like, they have like a whole page of dialogue that we got to get through.
Right.
And I was like, yours out there, we're having to yell to each other because it's so loud with the wind. And, you know, I had a crack audio guy who's, you know, just knows his stuff. Denny Green. He's just a fantastic audio guy. And he was so strategic in just placing lavalier mics on our talent, layering it with some, you know, padding and stuff. He did such an amazing job. And then he had the perfect balance of getting the voices and the wind. And when he got the wind, I was hearing it through the headphones, you know, through the IFBs. And I'm like, we have a third character in the film now.
Right.
And that totally became a total element and soundscape that when I went into the 5-1 mix with Paul Barker, I said, can we make this swirl all over the place? And, you know, that's what he did. And manning it all through. So, you know, you'll really feel it in theaters of just this crazy dust wind. And it's going to feel so much more brutal to the talent. Like you're going to empathize with them so much more. You're like, that's got to be insanely difficult, you know?
Well, you talked a little bit about the music. Let's play a little bit of the music video that we have for.
I should preface.
Please.
I love trying to get. I work in music videos. I know all these crazy musicians and stuff, and you know all these rock bands, and so I always want to try to get an original song for, you know, my films that I work in. I decided I do dabble in music, and so I decided to push myself and, you know, do a little bit of this. So this was a song that was written by me, Eugene Rice of American Mile, and Jasper Henry. We all wrote this together. Veronica Wicken played bass on it, and Eugene's brother Ryan played drums on it. And they were all, it's so sweet and down to, you know, help put this original, you know, soundtrack for the end credits of, you know, the short film. So that's kind of like what this is.
All right, let's hear it. Here goes. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Dude, I love that you shot this in the desert. That's so perfect. It's like you go from like having a gun to give me that guitar. Tell me you didn't shoot this all in the same weekend.
No.
This was okay. Thank God.
No. This was about a couple weeks later. You know, we gotten into the studio. We actually got the whole song done in a day. We'd gotten a demo together, you know, a couple weeks prior. I think we actually had a demo done before we even filmed the actual short. And then we got into the studio and actually tracked it. And Nate Husseini, my DP, actually, he filmed this music video as well. I cut it together. And I said, you know, ultimately, like, let's just down dirty it, desert setup, bands, you know, and I'm going to intercut some shots of the actual film within it. And we've brought that to festivals as well, because a lot of, you know, festivals have music video categories. And I was like, you know, why not submit something with the film to a music video category and go into both if we can.
Now, you've done the film festival circuit with Tragedy of Abe Froman. What were some of the festivals you got in for that one? Robert, do you remember offhand? I think you said LA Shorts was one of them. Was that right?
Yeah, LA Shorts was the last one, I believe, right? Or
LA Shorts was the last one. We had a couple. I think we had a couple of other ones. I can't remember.
We had the LA Liftoff.
Okay.
Liftoff. Yeah. We had Liftoff. A couple of other ones. Yeah. But LA Shorts was the most fun one. We got to screen down at Regal Cinema Live in downtown LA. You know, everyone turned out for it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I had an animated short that was played. That's a rush. Just seeing like a project like in the theater. It's like, this is the shit. This is why you make it. You know, it's like, I love going to the movies, and when you see something like that of yours on a screen like that, it's like, all right, this is why you put in all the time, investment, energy, all the, like, you're pulling out your hair, all those moments. And I know, Robert, you won Best Actor in a short, like it was a lot. Was it Best Actor short or something? What was it?
Best Actor in a thriller.
That's right.
And it was for the Actors Award.
That must have been awesome. You're like, okay, let's do this. Let's roll this out. And then, Will, are you making the festival circuit with Blood Money now? Is that what you're doing? You're applying? You know how all these film festivals are. They can be so political and they're crazy, and it's just it's hard, but it's also worthwhile when you get into the ones that you're hoping for. Tell me what that process is like for you, just submitting and just like waiting, and also every festival wants your film to be the debut, which kind of is like a little unfair too, because it's like, we can't be the debut at every one of these festivals when we want to be in every one of these festivals. How do you choose?
Rough. It's rough. You kind of have to, write it all down on paper and really kind of okay, so like notification date's here, but the event date's this. Okay, so that's for that one. This festival allows to screen internationally, but not here locally. It's a bit of a logistical nightmare, and you're right. There is so much politics that goes into it. Luckily, you definitely want to start with your tier 1 film festivals. I've submitted so far to like 11 Academy Award qualifying ones with Blood Money. And all of them, they don't compete like with each other. They're in a bunch of different areas. There's a couple international ones. We're submitted to in Ireland, in Canada, kind of all over the place. St. Louis. There's 2 here in LA, and we're submitted to LA Shorts again, and we're submitted to Holly Shorts, just kind of waiting to hear back. And we'll see how that goes. But it is a bit of a headache to go through that process. It's not my favorite. Antonio, my producer, was great in creating like a short list on Film Freeway as far as like good festivals that we want to get into.
Well, you never know which ones are going to be great. Like, the big ones. And then there's another tier where it's like, I think this is a good one. And then there's another tier where it's like, I'm not sure anything about this festival. And maybe and I've done them all. I've gone as far as Portugal, I've done New York, I've done Toronto, getting it into film festivals. And it's like, man, some were like amazing. And some I was like, I can't believe I flew all the way for, I like basically like a gymnasium cinema. You know what I mean? It's like, because you just don't know what you're going to get. And it's so hard. I feel like there should be a barometer of like, hey, these are the ones to get the thing into. And there's not. And it's like, it's kind of a weird process. I hope that changes, but I love that filmmakers are always trying to get their stuff in these festivals, because that's where you would get buyers, you get people, investors that want to make the full length, that see an idea and are like, this is great filmmaking. Are you guys going to these film fests and inspired by the people that you're seeing their works as well? Is there kind of future collaborations in the works? Tell me what that's like for you guys.
Robert, you want to go ahead? You can start.
Well, I've met a few people, but not so many that we've followed up with, or vice versa. Some of them we have followed up, and some of them haven't followed back up. But it's very finicky when it comes to trying to find collaborators within these festivals.
Well, it's also you have your crew already. It's like, you know what I mean?
In a way, but one thing I noticed though too, and if there's like some advice I could give as far as like festival stuff, because I've been in that same boat too, Nikki, as far as you show up and you're just like, why did I come to this? Exactly. I've been there, and it's not a fun feeling. And you also then you like get there too. The worst part is when you feel like your film just doesn't even fit in with the festival.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed too is if there's try to be genre specific about your festivals. So like, I have a Western, and one thing I look for was Western specific festivals.
Right.
And that's cool because, everybody going to that then is going to be in on the Western. I can't say actually as of today, we got approached about a film festival in Italy that it has a spaghetti Western. It's spaghetti Western theme.
That's awesome.
The guy who runs it reached out to me and said, we found your, Instagram page. We'd really love to submit it, and you're more than welcome to come out. But you can tell they went all in on it. They're all in, like, one of the editors from Good, Bad, and the Ugly is going to be there. They're doing a tribute with one of the trumpet players that played with Ennio Morricone.
Wow.
So it's like, I know we'll fit in. And it's
Right.
going to be a good time. And all the people that I'm going to meet there are going to be so in on Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood. And it's going to be well received there. And that in of itself will just kind of make it worth it, even if it's like small. But yeah, try to be genre specific as much as you can, because a lot of times too, yeah, you're like, our film just doesn't fit in here. You know,
we sent our animated project to one in Portugal, and it was a crapshoot. And it ended up being one of the best festivals I've ever been to. It's called Fest.
Yeah.
In Portugal. It's called New Cinema, New Directors, something like that. And it's known all over Europe as Fest. And man, I met Woody Allen's producer. I met the director, actress. I met the Oscar-winning team, the sound design team for Bohemian Rhapsody. And you're all in this small beach city in Portugal. So you're sitting having dinner with all these people. Some of them live in LA that you'd never have access to, but you're in Portugal together. And it was like everybody watched everybody's movies. Everybody attended all of the film showcases. And I'm like, this is what's missing in so many of the American film festivals. It's like, you don't see that unless they're the big ones that are known. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really weird. I hope that changes, because independent filmmaking, like what you guys are doing, is some of the best storytelling. So, you know, I love that you guys are just like doing it guerrilla style, but also making something that matters, that's poignant. The storytelling is solid, the acting is solid, the costumes, everything, the look, the way it's shot, the way it's edited. It's really, really solid. Where can people find you if they want to find your projects? Robert, let's start with you.
You could find me on Instagram, Robert_Lee_Brown. That's probably the easiest way to find me, or just Google search me, Robert Lee Brown.
And Will, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. What was the website?
I was just gonna say the videos can be found on YouTube under Will Cook Media.
All right, Will, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at William Phillips Cook. Go check out the Blood Money page. The account's actually kind of blowing up a little bit right now. We've been getting quite a lot of followers over the past 2 days.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, just look for Blood Money Film. And, you know, there's a lot of BTS content that we're dropping with that. So, I think people seem to really like that. I noticed the behind the scenes stuff is fantastic.
It is. It definitely helps a lot to just like perpetuate the project too, you know.
Yeah. And then you check out my website, willcookmedia.com. That's got my reel, all my music video work. I'm always working on something. I'm never not.
Well, Will, I love working with you, Will, and Robert, you too. We're definitely going to work on more stuff together. But check out these guys' films. There's a Tragedy of Abe Froman and Blood Money. Check them out on YouTube. Soon you'll upload it to YouTube for Blood Money. Is that right, Will?
It's going to be about a year before it's released to the public, but you can catch it in festivals, maybe in LA pretty soon.
You have to let us know. Yeah, let us know. Instagram, baby.
Posted.
Let us
Not
know.
allowed to say anything yet.
On behalf of Will, myself, Robert, and Sam, we'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And check out these films, baby.
You're listening to Wake Up Hollywood with Nikhil Korula and Eddie Pence, right here on LA Talk Radio.